Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
I've always wanted to know what it's like to work in a big aquarium, so I came to the New England Aquarium in Boston to learn what it takes to be an aquarist. How hard can it be?
Founded in 1969, the New England Aquarium is one of the most famous public aquaria in the United States and an icon of Boston. Over 1 million people visit the New England Aquarium every year to see amazing exhibits and the world-famous giant ocean tank, a 200,000-gallon tropical coral reef exhibit. I arrived nice and early to meet Sherry Floyd, the senior aquarist.
Hi, Sherry.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
This is my coworker, Elisha.
Hi, nice to meet you.
She's going to be spending a good portion of the day with you today.
Oh, great.
Whip you into shape.
Lucky you.
Okay, we're going to be feeding sharks in the giant ocean tank today, but before we do that, you're going to have to earn your dive in the giant ocean tank.
Uh-oh.
We're going to start by scrubbing the floor. So come with me.
I can hardly wait. Shh, people work here.
Dozens of aquarists work here, and I'm going to find out what it takes to keep the exhibits running by becoming an aquarist in training. I must look smart because they start me right away on an important job.
Being an aquarist is hard work.
Soon, Sherry recognizes my natural talents and moves me up to something with much more responsibility.
Okay, ready?
I'm an aquarist in training, baby, right here.
But cleaning the drain is definitely paying my dues.
You know, when I thought I was going to be an aquarist today, I figured I'd be feeding the fish and hanging out with scientists, learning all kinds of biology, but I'm getting goo out of a drain.
At last, I've graduated to something important: food preparation. All the fish need something special to eat, and all of that food has to be prepared in advance.
Needs cabin. Oh yeah, smells good, huh?
Fishy.
We keep it in
Squid are one of the main items on the menu, and they have to be prepared by removing the beaks and then cutting them into appropriately sized pieces.
All right, buddy, you're getting debeaked.
flip the tentacles open,
Okay, tentacle man.
pop it like a pimple.
Like,
It's from the bottom.
this?
Yep. And then pull it out with your fingers.
oh, dude.
You can give it to me.
Oh, thanks. Oh, look, some squid goo.
Oh, yeah, lots of
That's
goo
goo. Oh, delicious. This would be a bad time to cut yourself. Okay, so I have some little squid rings.
Yep. So then we'll put
We deep fry them?
No.
Oh, good gracious. Look
So
at the
this
size
is a
of that
large
thing.
squid.
I'll say.
This is what the sharks eat.
Oh, yummy.
So the beak is much larger here.
Food preparation takes a lot of time, and it has to be done 4 times a
Yes.
day.
Okay.
What else can I show you guys?
Ew.
Oh, it's not. So
Well,
yeah.
so far, there's nothing here that I really want to eat,
Oh, come on.
except for this squid.
You'd eat a squid. You'd eat a squid.
No, I wouldn't.
Here, you can hold that.
Next, I learned to burp the air out of the swim bladder of a smelt so it will sink.
You want to burp one?
Sure, I'll burp one.
They're very slimy.
Oh, a slimy smell.
Push like up the
like
stomach.
this.
Push from down
I'm gonna
up.
aim them at you when I do
No,
this.
no.
Oh.
Then I remove the roe from capelin. The eggs are food for smaller animals in the exhibits, and the fish themselves are fed to larger animals.
Fish eggs.
Yeah.
And
Do they smell fresh?
they smell very fishy.
It's about as fresh as you get.
Finally, it's out to the GOT, the giant ocean tank, to start feeding some of the fish. I'm surprised to learn that the fish are hand-fed.
It's hard to believe that with this big tank, we have to actually sit here and feed specific fish. You can't just throw the food in. You have to actually pick and choose which fish you're feeding. That seems like a lot of work to me.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Here you go. Oh yeah, good job.
Finally, Sherry gives me a briefing on what to expect in the GOT, and I start suiting up for my dive. Outside, it's the middle of winter in Boston, with temperatures below freezing, but I'm getting ready to do a tropical dive. I check my camera, and it's off to the dive site. And off I go. Down the hallway and through the double doors. I'm really excited about my dive, but I can't help worrying about what tasks lay ahead of me in my aquarist training program.
All right, it's the moment of truth. It's February in Boston, and I'm going diving. With no hood. All right, here we go. Okay, here we go.
I hit the warm water with a splash while hundreds of people watch and head down below the surface to swim with the fish in this enormous fish tank. Except for all the people looking in through the glass, it would be easy to believe that this was a real Caribbean reef. There are so many fish and the water is so clear, I feel just like I'm diving at some beautiful Caribbean island. Of all the animals in the tank, of course, the sand tiger sharks are my favorite. The aquarists keep them well fed, so they're not aggressive at all, but they are beautiful to watch. Unfortunately, I have to work. A diver has to scrub these windows every day to keep the algae from growing on them. I tried to tell them I don't do windows, but an aquarist's job is never finished. Meanwhile, Sherry is checking the health of the fish. She's down on the bottom examining a nurse shark that has a small cut. When I finally finish the windows, Sherry demonstrates how she feeds the sand tiger sharks. They aren't always hungry since they're fed regularly, but the aquarists use a pole to feed them because when they do decide to eat, you wouldn't want your fingers anywhere near those teeth. I hang back and film the action for a while, but soon Sherry decides that I'm ready to try feeding the fish. This is exciting. I finally get to do the fun stuff. She hands me some squid, and I look for a taker. The pressure is on because everyone's watching. A cow-nosed ray comes up and tries to take the squid from me, but I haven't quite gotten the hang of it. The ray gives up and moves on. So I try feeding the nurse shark using the pole, just like Sherry showed me. But talk about getting the cold shoulder. At last, Sherry takes pity on my pathetic attempts and gives me some capelin. I'm told I can't go wrong with this irresistible, delicious fish. My first taker is a cow-nosed ray, and I can't resist giving her a little belly rub as she swims over. I must be doing something right because she takes a lap around the tank and comes back for more. Next, Myrtle the turtle comes over. Turtles are supposed to eat plants and jellyfish, but Myrtle isn't picky. As you can see from her figure, she likes food. And when Myrtle wants food, you just give it to her. Forget the sharks, Myrtle runs this tank. The cow-nosed ray is back for thirds. Aren't they cute? Next, I try my luck with a large pompano. With all the fish fed, my job in the GOT is finished, and I head for the surface. It's been a long but thrilling tropical reef dive right in the heart of Boston. I head back to the swim step. Reluctantly, I must get out of the water.
That was great. 3 sharks, and none of them would eat anything from me. They don't like me.
Back in the dive locker room, I can enjoy a nice clean shower, and I know that the drain won't get plugged up. So what did I learn? Being an aquarist is hard work. It's not all fun and games. Much of the job is devoted to prepping food and cleaning exhibits. But if you love the creatures of the ocean, few things can beat the fun of working with animals like this. And if you're lucky enough to spend a few hours a day diving in the giant ocean tank, well, this just might be the best job in the world. The ocean is full of amazing fish, like this school of surgeonfish feeding on algae on the reef. Colorful anemone fish, or this school of sweepers hiding in the coral for protection. One of the most beautiful but rarely seen fish is the Mandarin fish, found on coral reefs of the Pacific.
Mandarin fish are extremely shy and only come out of the reef at dusk to mate. I'm here in Micronesia on an island called Yap, one of the best places in the world to find mandarin fish. And this evening I'm going on a dive to see if I can find a few.
I enter the water right at sunset. As the light levels get lower on the reef, the daytime fish feed before they must hide for the night. A lot of changes take place on the reef at dusk. Just before the sun sets, I have my best chance of finding a mandarin fish. In the dim light, I search the reef carefully. I can't use a flashlight because it would scare the tiny fish. Mandarin fish are very shy. They rarely leave the protection offered by the nooks and crannies in the reef. There, a small amount of movement catches my eye. A mandarin fish. If I didn't know where and when to look, I would never find it. As the sun sinks lower in the sky, the light levels drop, and something magical happens. The mandarin fish peeks out to see if the coast is clear. These reclusive fish only venture from the safety of their coral home to mate, and they only do it in a narrow window of time at dusk. A male wanders from female to female, courting each one. His goal is to spawn as many times as he can with as many females as possible. He's not particularly choosy about a partner. The females size him up. They're a little more selective about a mate than he is. He's not worried. If one female gets cold fins, another one will jump in at the last minute. Then the male and the female pair up and begin to make practice runs, rising up off the reef, cheek to cheek. At last the pair spawns for real. Rising well above the reef to keep the eggs from being eaten by the coral, the male and the female release their spawn at the same time. The eggs are fertilized in the water column. Over and over, the male spawns as many times as he can, perhaps as many as 10 times in half an hour. The fertilized eggs then drift off into open water to develop into tiny baby mandarin fish. Most will not survive to adulthood. Once darkness comes, the spawning ends. The mandarin fish seek protection in the reef, safe for another day.
Well, it's after sunset and the mandarin fish have finished mating for the night and gone back into the reef. They won't come back out of the reef till tomorrow night. So for now, it's time for me to go to bed.
Don't go away. Jonathan is about to swim with the world's biggest fish, a whale shark.
I've journeyed to the warm and shallow waters of tiny Wolfish Island in the Gulf of Mexico to find and film the world's largest fish.
Wolfish is barely more than a sandy speck on the map at the northern end of the Yucatan. It's not your typical tourist destination. Until recently, this sleepy island wasn't much more than a fishing village. There are no paved roads, and everyone gets around in golf carts or other non-conventional transportation. The highway here is a stretch of beach where you can hit maybe 20 miles an hour if you have a fast card. Downtown, this island has the charm of a place not yet discovered by throngs of tourists. But everywhere there are signs. Something special has been discovered here. Offshore in the cool waters of the Gulf of Mexico, a giant lurks. I get up early to meet the boats to take me and a few other intrepid snorkelers on the adventure of a lifetime.
Right, let's go find some whale sharks.
Instead of catching fish, these former fishermen are now making their living taking tourists to swim with a fish, a really big fish. Using a GPS receiver to help him navigate, the captain takes us about an hour offshore. Our guide, Andreas, watches the water with a carefully trained eye on the horizon. Soon we pass a pod of dolphins. They circle the boat a few times to check us out, then vanish. Then we come across a group of eagle rays frolicking at the calm surface. I've never seen eagle rays doing this before. I'm not even sure what they're up to. But after a few minutes, we have to move on. We put the boat back in gear and keep looking. A ripple up ahead catches Andreas's keen eye. As we approach, we find a giant manta ray feeding right at the surface, mouth wide open. Mantas can reach 20 feet across, but this is just a small one, only about the size of a car. Finally, Andreas spots what we're looking for, the huge head of a whale shark sticking up out of the water. As we pull the boat up alongside the shark, I can see its massive mouth open and funneling water in like a gigantic storm drain. The shark is feeding. But what could it be eating? It's more than 30 feet long. what could feed such an enormous animal? To find out, I don my snorkel gear and hop over the side. The whale shark passes right in front of me. The water is not very clear, and this is where I get my first clue what is going on here. The sharks have come to this section of the ocean because it's filled with plankton. Whale sharks might be the biggest fish in the sea, but they eat only plankton and small fish. The word plankton comes from a Greek word meaning drifter, so plankton are drifting organisms like these tiny copepods. The water is filled with copepods, jellyfish, and other drifting animals. They might be small, but these planktonic animals are all food for the mighty whale shark. Early in the morning, when the water is calm, the plankton forms a thick layer near the surface.
He's just surface feeding. What the whale sharks do here is they swim across the surface of the water with their mouths open wide, and all that plankton that's sitting right at the surface gets funneled right into their mouths.
The enormous mouth swallows up huge quantities of water. The water comes back out through the shark's gills, but comb-like structures in the gills capture the plankton like an enormous spaghetti strainer. So the whale shark swimming through the water is like a big pool skimmer filtering the plankton for breakfast. Each shark eats hundreds of pounds of food every hour. It turns out that eating plankton is very efficient for a large animal. Conditions here around Holbox Island are perfect for plankton in the summer. The plankton makes the water really murky, but all that food attracts huge schools of fish. It's a bounty that feeds many kinds of animals. Manta rays feed on the plankton. But the whale shark is by far the most impressive animal that comes here. Reaching 50 feet long, whale sharks grow as large as a school bus. But they're completely harmless. All they eat are plankton and tiny fish.
That is incredible. They are so huge. And there's so much plankton in the water that we can only see maybe 20 feet underwater. So they're bigger than the visibility. You can't even see the tail from the head.
I can't believe how many sharks are feeding around the boat. There's so much plankton here that it attracts whale sharks for hundreds of miles around. Some of the sharks have escorts, schools of fish that swarm around them for protection. They too eat the plankton, splashing at the surface as they feed alongside the shark. But when I swim over to investigate, they hide under the shark as if it were a huge swimming reef. Freediving and keeping up with these sharks is hard work.
They don't look like they're moving that fast. I mean, their tail is just, gently swishing back and forth, but they are so big. That tail is so huge that they're actually moving faster than we can keep up with them. You swim as hard as you can for about 30 seconds and then you're pooped and you give up and off they go.
Later, as the sun gets higher in the sky and the air gets warmer, the wind picks up and waves start to form. The plankton layer dissipates and the sharks get harder and harder to find, they're diving deeper out of sight. Once they dive below, we have no way to find them, so we head back to shore. My trip to Wolfish has been a tremendous success and a lot of fun. The economy of this tiny island has been transformed by this big, harmless, polka-dotted shark. Here in Wolfish, people love whale sharks, and they're protected by law. And that's the best part of this story.
Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
I've come to Yap in Micronesia, famous for its huge stone money and its giant manta rays.
Yap is a remote island in the Pacific, about halfway between Japan and Australia. Divers travel here from all over the world to see an amazing and huge animal.
I'm talking about manta rays, the largest rays in the world, and they should be right under the boat. Let's go take a look.
As I drop into the water, I notice that it's pretty murky. I'm diving in a channel through the fringing reef between the open ocean and the land. As the tide changes, water flows in and out of this channel. The current is moving me along rapidly, and I ride it like a river, following my guide John to a section of reef where we hope to find mantas. I tuck into a position at the base of a coral head, out of the current, and wait. The swift current blows the coral polyps like wind and sweeps along pieces of eelgrass and mangrove leaves from the lagoon. I wait a long time. It takes nearly an hour, but finally a shape emerges from the murky distance. I would recognize that shape anywhere, the beautiful and graceful motion of a manta ray, soaring like a huge bird through the water. It stops over the coral. A dozen or so tiny fish converge on the ray while it hovers just over their home. The fish are cleaner wrasses. They pluck parasites from the rays, and this coral head is known as a cleaning station. It's a great symbiotic relationship because both the fish and the rays benefit from it. The fish get a meal of tasty parasites like copepods and scraps of dead skin, while the manta ray gets rid of parasitic annoyances that can cause infection. Cleaning is not always a pleasant experience, though. Sometimes one of the cleaner fish nibbles a little too hard, and the manta jumps away. At the end of my dive, I do a short decompression stop for safety, then head up.
That was incredible! The current was really strong. It was blowing me back. I could barely hold on. The manta ray was just lying gently into the current, holding his position over the cleaning station. Really incredible to see.
It's no coincidence that the mantas like a little bit of current while they're being cleaned. Mantas, like all rays and sharks, have no swim bladder. A bony fish can hover in mid-water perfectly still because it has a swim bladder to control its buoyancy. Sharks and rays sink if they stop swimming. The enormous wings of the manta, reaching 25 feet across, allow them to fly through the water like a bird. And like a bird, if they stop flapping, they'll begin to glide towards the bottom. The mantas come to the cleaning station at a particular time, but it has nothing to do with the time of day. Like a runner on a treadmill, the mantas require just the right amount of water movement so they can swim in place to be cleaned by the fish. They follow the timing of the tides, preferring to be cleaned just before or after slack tide when the water is moving, but not too fast. This manta is holding its mouth wide open so the cleaners can go inside. As long as we don't get too close, the mantas are not bothered by our cameras and bubbles at all. There are only a few prime cleaning stations, and they have become social stops as much as hygienic visits. Often there are a dozen or more manta rays at the cleaning station, all taking turns being cleaned and interacting with each other while waiting.
Each manta ray has a unique pattern of spots on its belly, which can be used like a fingerprint to identify individual animals. Here at Yap Divers, they've been documenting and photographing these spot patterns for many years, and they've identified more than 60 individual manta rays and given them nicknames. This morning, I got to meet Zorro.
Zorro has 3 little spots and a pair of stripes between her gills. Underwater, she's easy to identify. The 3 spots and the stripes. Being able to identify individuals has proved that the mantas around Yap stay here for long periods of time. They're not just passing through, they live here, and the divers see the same ones over and over and over. Yap has more to see than just mantas, though. I cruise over to the other side of the island to explore the outer reefs. There I see magnificent coral and crystal clear water far away from the murky water in the channel. I swim with a big school of barracudas. When I get too close, I spook them. I watch a sea turtle munching on a sponge. And I swim in magnificent coral caverns, tunnels that snake between the coral heads and make me feel like I'm exploring another planet. Yet at the end of my dive, as I emerge from the cavern, I see another manta ray flying over, far from the cleaning station. It's almost as if this single manta has come to bid me farewell. It's a magical and fitting end to an astonishing journey. On most of my dive expeditions, I'm just going down to observe, but today I'm on a rescue mission. I'm going to rescue some juvenile fish. This might be hard to believe, but if I don't go get them, they will surely die. You see, every year, millions of tropical fish eggs from the Caribbean get caught in the Gulf Stream and take a ride up north where they hatch and grow for several months.
And a lot of these juvenile fish end up here off the coast of Rhode Island, a long way from home, more than 1,000 miles from the Caribbean. The problem is that when winter comes and this water gets cold, they'll die.
Even if we don't have our
So every year, the New England Aquarium Dive Club organizes a tropical fish rescue. People come from miles around to try their hand at collecting tropical fish for the New England Aquarium exhibits. So I've come down to give it a try, but I'm a little concerned because I've photographed a lot of fish, but I've never caught fish. I don't really know how to do it, and I'm concerned about actually hurting the fish. So I'm here with Michael Shrubin, who's an expert in collecting tropical fish, and he's going to help me out. Now, Michael, can you tell me, is this hard? I mean, what do I need to know?
It's not hard. The biggest thing is to be calm. I've got all the tools, and I know where the fish are. I can show you how to do it.
All right, let's go.
All right.
All right, Michael, so show me this gear you have here. It's kind of interesting.
Well, it's funny. It's the various evolutions of catching tropicals. This is what I started out with, which is a soda bottle with the end cut off of it. And if this were a rock, you put the soda bottle down, and you just use your hand and get the fish in, and you can see what kind of fish he is. This is the way I normally catch fish and have been for a long time. And what it is, it's a net, and the trick is this is the container that everything ends up in that I want, and it always keeps water going through it. There are holes in there, a valve to keep the fish from going back out, and if I don't want it, I can cap it off and let that animal out, the valve.
So, we put on our suits, check our gear, and head into the water. The fish are small and they hide in the rocks in very shallow water, so Michael inches along looking closely at the bottom in search of them. Then his eye catches a juvenile butterfly fish, a baby tropical fish that looks out of place in New England. I watch as Michael easily catches the fish in his net. Does the fish have any idea of its fate as it descends through Michael's apparatus? Who knows, but one thing is certain, this little fish will die if we don't rescue it. Now it's my turn. I grab my net and start looking. Then I see what looks like a pea with a face bobbing in the water. It's a juvenile boxfish. I coax it into my net. This fish is so tiny, I'm afraid of hurting it, so as you can imagine, I'm very gentle. I slowly work the fish all the way down to my bottle. While we're looking for more fish to rescue, I'm startled to see a fully grown seahorse battered by the strong surge. I thought seahorses were exclusively tropical fish, but Michael says no.
I don't believe he is. A lot of people believe that he belongs in our water and can live in our cold water all the way up to Nova Scotia. It's something that most people never ever see and wouldn't believe that you could see in the North Atlantic.
Just to be sure, we decide to rescue him and check which species he is. He clings to the algae with his tail, and I have to coax him into the bottle with my hand. I could easily hurt him, so I'm super careful. To try and make him more comfortable, I bring some of the algae he likes into the bottle. He seems too large to be a juvenile, so I'm betting he's a full-time resident of these northern waters. After the dive, we check out the fish we rescued. Michael keeps them alive in a small aquarium until they reach their final home at the New England Aquarium. They will start out in a smaller tank, but as they grow, these fish will eventually end up in the 200,000-gallon giant ocean tank, the main attraction at the New England Aquarium. These three amigos will be on their way to the New England Aquarium within hours. The seahorse, as it turns out, is a local, so we'll let him go. It's been a long and perilous journey from the Caribbean, but thanks to the many volunteers, these fish have been spared a certain death from the cold winter water here in New England. Turns out these guys will survive their ordeal and probably even thrive in their new homes.
Don't go away. Jonathan is about to go eye to eye with a really big tiger shark.
The tiger shark, one of the world's most feared and dangerous sharks. It patrols the shallows of tropical oceans looking for a meal.
But what would it be like to dive with a tiger shark? How would it react to a diver? I'm going to investigate tiger sharks. I'm going to do it without a cage.
My adventure begins when I board the Dolphin Dream in West Palm Beach, Florida. This boat will be my home away from home for a week. We begin our journey by crossing the Gulf Stream on a course to the Bahamas. It's an 8-hour journey across some very rough water.
It's 55 miles of the open Atlantic Ocean between Florida and the Bahamas, and it can get pretty rough out here.
Captain Andy drives the boat through the swells all day to reach West End, Grand Bahama, where we go through customs and then continue to a secret spot called Tiger Wreck. We anchor the boat securely. We will sit here for the whole week looking for sharks. Next, we begin chumming. The boat's freezers are full of bait because we need a lot of fish to bring tiger sharks to the boat. Within only an hour, sharks start coming to the boat.
6, 7, 8.
This is incredible! We've only been chumming for about an hour, and there's already more than 20 lemon sharks around the back of the boat. And I gotta go in.
Now it's time to suit up and get into the water.
I'm wearing a black wetsuit, black gloves, and even a black hood, because underwater, skin looks like fish. And the last thing that I want is for the sharks to think my hands are pieces of fish they can eat. So I have to go to this length to make sure that I have no skin showing. I guess this is the part where I have to go in the water. Oh well, this is what I came here for. Geronimo.
I grab my camera and head down to the sandy bottom, only 20 feet below. Lemon sharks are everywhere. You can tell that these are lemon sharks by their 2 dorsal fins, which are nearly the same size. You might be wondering why they call them lemon sharks. I mean, they don't really look like lemons.
They call them lemon sharks actually because they have yellowy skin, and it really has nothing to do with lemons.
There are also many fish around the boat that are attracted to the chum. With so many sharks and fish around, the sharks even get a few live ones. Although there are no tiger sharks, I have a fantastic dive full of excitement. I head back to the surface for a rest.
Whoa! That's a lot of sharks! Wow! I think that's the most sharks I've ever been in with at the same time. And the ladder is probably not a great place to hang out. Whoa, that was incredible. I can only imagine what it's gonna be like when the tiger shark shows up. Woo!
We will continue chumming and hope the tigers pick up the scent. Meanwhile, the lemon sharks just keep coming, and the water around the boat is starting to look downright frightening. Later, after sunset, I start suiting up again.
Tiger sharks are nocturnal, which means they're more active at night. So it makes sense that if I want to find tiger sharks, I should go diving at night. There's really only one small problem with that. It's dark. Oh well. Here goes.
I descend towards the bottom and switch on my video lights. On the ocean floor, Gorgonian sea fans sway in the current. Then, out of the darkness comes a shark. It's not a tiger, it's another lemon shark, but it still provides a thrill as it swims by and takes a look at my camera. The lemons seem just as active at night as they are during the day. I wonder if they ever rest. They find my video lights worthy of inspection. After an hour underwater in the dark, I surface without finding a tiger shark. I guess we just need to chum and wait. Tiger sharks can be elusive.
Whoa! That was amazing! I have to tell you, no tiger sharks, but the lemons are pretty spooky at night.
The next day, I head back to the bottom once again. There are still plenty of lemon sharks around. But then, a shape in the distance catches my eye. It's a tiger shark! At last, a tiger shark has appeared. It takes her a while to get comfortable with divers in the water, but eventually she approaches closer to investigate me. She comes up and makes a few passes by the bait, cautiously keeping an eye on me. For such large animals, tiger sharks seem a lot less aggressive than you might expect. It's as if they carefully consider each step, trying to decide if it's safe. Finally, she comes right up to a huge piece of bait and takes it away in one bite. The shark is also interested in the chunks of fish that have fallen to the sand. As the sharks go by, I take the opportunity to compare the two species. There are several differences between the tiger shark and the lemon sharks. Besides the different type of dorsal fins, the tiger shark also has a broader, flatter head and the distinctive tiger stripes for which they're named. The sharks seem interested in my video lights. Even though they're not being used during the day, the white housing of the lights probably looks like a piece of fish to the sharks, and they often come up to closely investigate them. Occasionally, a shark takes a test bite out of the light, and if I don't see it coming, it takes me by surprise. I'm not prepared for a large tiger shark to come in after my video light, though. She keeps coming closer and closer. Then, as she tries to bite it, and I try to keep it away from her, we spin around on the sandy bottom like two dancers. She eventually pushes me into the bottom and gets a hold of my light. There's nothing I can do about it except use my camera as a shield and hope she doesn't eat the whole thing. When she's satisfied that the light isn't food, she turns and swims off, and I'm glad she does. That was a little bit too close for comfort, and that's the reason we wear dark clothing and gloves when we dive with sharks. If that had been my hand, I would be in serious trouble right now. I head to the surface, impressed by the strength of the large tiger shark, and ready to escape the sea for a while. I've enjoyed many adventures in the ocean and many exciting encounters with sharks, but this one will stick with me for a long time.
Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Sea turtles have been swimming in the world's oceans for 65 million years since the time of the dinosaurs. It may be surprising that these animals could be endangered after existing for so long on Earth, but it's true. There are only a few places left where sea turtles still thrive.
And this is one of those places. I've come all the way to Sipadan Island in Malaysia to explore one of the world's most incredible sea turtle sanctuaries.
Well, now we go. We head out towards the reefs of Sipadan Island. This island is so small that you can walk all the way around it on the beach in an hour. Yet, it has a huge population of sea turtles. I suit up for a dive to explore the reefs and hopefully find a few sea turtles. Immediately, I end up right in the middle of a huge school of jacks. Sipadan is known for massive schools of fish. As the school of jacks swims away, I spot my first sea turtle, a green sea turtle swimming over the reef. It wasn't hard because they're everywhere. Some are swimming around while others are napping on and in the reef. Sea turtles actually sleep underwater while holding their breath. A sea turtle can easily hold its breath over an hour. A few hundred feet away, I find a hawksbill sea turtle munching on the reef. She's plucking out tasty sponges and invertebrates that hide in the coral, rather than eat the coral itself. It takes a tough stomach to digest this stuff.
That was incredible. I have never seen such big schools of fish anywhere. But the sea turtles, man, I must have seen 30 sea turtles on one dive. Amazing.
As we circle the island, I can see the tracks left in the sand by females that have climbed the beach to lay their eggs. It all starts when a male, identified by his long tail, catches up with a cooperative female and courts her. From the surface, I see the action and I prepare to film it.
Here's the plan. I'm going to slip in, quietly grab the camera, and off I go. And I need somebody to stand on the bow and just point at the turtles, okay? Just
Go up there.
so I can see where the heck they are.
As we approach closer, I gear up to head in. The mating has begun, and I quietly approach to film the action. Mating is not easy for the female sea turtle. She must swim and rise to breathe for both of them. The male's long tail holds the female and fertilizes the eggs, while claws on his front flippers give him the ability to grasp the female's shell. The commotion doesn't go unnoticed by other males in the area. They flock to the mating pair, which have drifted away from the reef. In competition for a limited number of females, the other males look for ways to dislodge the suitor. One challenger bites his flipper. When that doesn't work, he tries a blast of air bubbles. He tries sticking his head between the mating pair, hoping to wedge them apart. Through it all, the mating male must hang on and tough it out. Fighting back would mean losing his grip, and that's just what his rivals want. Eventually, no less than 4 additional male turtles arrive to challenge the suitor. They all try the same techniques, and it's starting to wear him down. Meanwhile, the female is near exhaustion. The male is only struggling to hold on. The female is struggling to survive. Seeing this incredible struggle in person for the first time gives me a lot of respect for sea turtles. Hours later, the male has outlasted his rivals. He fertilizes the female's eggs, and with luck, his genes will continue on. As if her job weren't hard enough already, the female now faces another tremendous task: to lay the eggs, but it must wait until nightfall. After the sun sets, I head to the beach in total darkness.
I've come ashore at night to see if I can find some nesting turtles. The females come ashore and they lay their eggs in the sand. But I have to be really quiet because if they see me or they hear me, they'll take off right back into the ocean.
Using infrared night vision equipment, I've found a turtle hauling herself out of the water, painstakingly clawing her way up the beach to high ground. Although sea turtles live their entire lives in the ocean, they lay their eggs in a nest on the beach. After the sea turtle reaches an area well above the high tide line, she begins to throw sand around to create a pit.
I have to be very quiet because I'm sneaking up on a turtle that's nesting. They get pretty nervous when they're nesting because predators are everywhere.
She must stop frequently to catch her breath. Her crushing weight on land literally asphyxiates her.
Whoa. This is a good place to be if you want to get covered in sand.
She begins to dig a hole about 3 feet deep with her rear flippers. The hole doesn't just protect the eggs from predators. The sex of the baby turtles is a function of the incubation temperature. A shallow nest baking in the sun will be too warm and all the babies will be female. A deep one will be too cold and the babies will all be male. Digging to the right depth ensures a good mix of males and females. She can't see what she's doing. The hole must be dug entirely by feel. As she begins laying her eggs, we can gradually bring up some normal lighting. She's committed to the nest now. At last, she begins to lay as many as 100 squishy eggs about the size of ping pong balls into the nest. In 2 months, these eggs will hatch and the baby sea turtles will emerge. After she's finished laying her eggs, she carefully fills in the hole. Then she cleverly disguises the exact location of the nest by flinging some more sand around. After 2 hours of effort, she plods her way laboriously back to the sea, completely exhausted. For a sea turtle, 100 feet back to the water is like running a marathon. It requires enormous effort. Her body is just not designed for travel on land. She needs the weightlessness of the ocean to catch her breath and cool down. Finally, she heads back to the reef for a well-deserved rest. Two months later, newly hatched sea turtles race to the sea. Each baby turtle must rush past a gauntlet of predators from land, sky, and sea to reach the open ocean. Odds are, only one of these baby sea turtles will survive. On their journey, the sea turtles must fight their way through the surf, swim across the shallows, and then make their way to the open ocean, away from predators on the reef. They won't return to their home on the reef until they're large enough to be safe, about the size of a dinner plate. It's a long and perilous journey, but if this sea turtle survives, it may go on to live over 100 years.
Most people come here to Yap in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to dive on beautiful coral reefs and meet the manta rays. I noticed that 90% of the island is covered in these beautiful, lush mangrove forests. So I got special permission from the chief of Baychell Village to explore the mangroves.
Mangroves are a type of plant living in the tidal coastal areas between sea and land. All share the trait of being able to tolerate partial submersion in salt water and poor oxygen content in the ground where their roots penetrate. Mangroves only grow in the tropics, like these rich mangrove forests in Yap. Mangroves are extremely important for several reasons. First, they serve as a buffer zone between the ocean and the shore. Their roots hold the shoreline together, limiting erosion and attenuating the waves. In effect, they form a protective barrier between the ocean and the land. Second, and perhaps more importantly, mangroves serve as a refuge for marine life. The tangled maze of roots in the mangrove forest creates a confusing, shallow water labyrinth. Taking refuge in this protective maze, many animals survive here when they couldn't survive anywhere else. The mangrove is a nursery for juvenile fish and invertebrates. In the protection of the calm, sheltered waters of the mangroves away from predators, the juvenile fish find food and safety. Without the mangrove nursery, life on the reefs would be in trouble.
Mangroves live in salt water, which is a tough environment for a plant. The roots are designed to soak up the water and exclude as much salt as possible in the process. They have little filters built into their cells. But the plants still take in a fair amount of salt, and they have to get rid of it or it'll kill the tree. And they get rid of it by concentrating it in their leaves. Some mangrove trees excrete the salt out through the leaf as a crystal, which is then washed away by rain. You can taste the salt on the leaves.
Other trees concentrate the salt in older leaves, which then turn yellow and fall off, taking the salt with them. All those leaves land in the water, sink to the bottom, and decompose. The mud has a high concentration of bacteria to break down all the organic material. These bubbles on the bottom are mostly methane, the byproduct of decomposition. The bacteria consume the leaves, releasing nutrients that wash out to sea every day on the receding tide. So, the mangroves are an important food and nutrient source for animals and plants on the reefs and in the open ocean.
Most trees have their roots completely underground. Mangrove trees have their roots coming up out of the water into the air like this. That's because the soil down below the water here is a black muck that's high in bacteria, has very little oxygen in it, so the roots can't absorb any oxygen. So when they come up into the air, they absorb the oxygen directly through their skin.
Partially submerged conditions in mangrove forests make it hard for traditional seeds to take root, so reproduction requires special seeds.
This is a mangrove seed. The seed part's up here, but it has a long root already on it. When it falls off the tree, it floats like a cork with this part up and this part down. When it floats into shallow water, this part will go right into the soft bottom, and the leaves will come out the top, and you have an instant mangrove tree ready to start growing.
This adaptation allows a seed to take root in shallow water with the root in the bottom and the leaves at the surface. Exploring the mangroves, I realized not only how fascinating this habitat is, but important as well. It's imperative that as coastal development continues, care is taken not to overlook the importance and beauty of the mangrove forests, the nurseries of the reefs. They're not just part of the land or part of the ocean, but a critically important link between these two worlds.
Don't go away. Jonathan is off looking for wolfish, and they're not what they appear to be.
One of my favorite places to dive is Eastport, Maine. The water's cold, but the bottom is covered with an incredible amount of colorful marine life. Eastport is near the Canadian border at the mouth of the Bay of Fundy. The huge tidal range in Eastport means that the water's almost always flowing one way or the other as the tide comes in or goes out. The moving water, full of plankton, feeds a ton of invertebrates, making the bottom lush. It gives me plenty of things to film on every dive. There's pink soft coral feeding on the plankton. Anemones cling to everything, even an old drain pipe. The lobsters reach epic proportions. And fish thrive like this camouflaged sea raven blending in with the bottom. A shrimp rests on a sponge. And a whelk, a kind of large snail, searches for a meal. Unfortunately, the whelk is about to become dinner for my favorite animal, the Atlantic wolfish. Wolfish might have big teeth, but these fish are no threat to people. They like to eat whelks and crabs. Wolfish often get together in pairs during the summer to lay their eggs. They hang out in the same den under a rock. After the female lays around 10,000 eggs, the male kicks her out and guards the eggs for several months until they hatch. Here you can see the egg mass behind the male, way inside his den. Over the years, I've become friendly with a wolfish I call Gene. He can't resist a whelk or two when I bring them right to his front door. It took me a couple of years to get him comfortable enough with me to come all the way out of his den. Even then, he's pretty skittish. I've heard about Pacific wolfish that are bigger and friendlier, and I want to go meet them, so I'll have to travel from Maine all the way to British Columbia. My journey takes me from Eastport to Vancouver. Next, I have to drive out to Port Hardy, where my dive boat awaits. Well, 4 hours to Port Hardy on the beautiful roads of Vancouver Island. In the drizzling rain, I board the Mangrove, my dive boat for the week. Soon, under a clearing sky, we're underway. Captain Dan drives the boat past gorgeous forest wilderness on our way to Clam Cove, where we'll anchor the boat for a few days in search of Pacific wolf eels. Pacific wolf eel is the local name for this impressive fish, but it's not an eel at all. It's actually a fish, just like the Atlantic wolfish, so it should be called a Pacific wolf fish. Whatever you want to call it, I'm going to find one. We depart aboard the skiff for our first dive. I start suiting up in anticipation. The water's 45 degrees, but my dry suit will keep me warm.
And now I'm ready. Voila! Ready to dive in the cold Pacific Northwest.
My cold water dive gear is bulky and cumbersome, but I'm used to it.
Let's go check it out!
Descending through the kelp, I find a world as rich in marine life as Eastport, driven by similar tidal action and nutrients. I swim over the edge of the wall to search for a Pacific wolf eel. There, sticking just its head out from its den, a fully grown male wolf eel stares at my camera. Nearby, a younger one with darker coloration, also curious what I'm up to, but not about to come out. Both have prominent teeth, just like the Atlantic wolfish, but they appear just as docile. Soon I turn back to observe the big male, and he starts coming right at me. He's coming out of his den. He's a lot longer than the Atlantic wolfish. I'm not sure what he's up to. He comes up to closely investigate my lens. Maybe he sees his reflection. He lets me hold him in my hand. They told me the Pacific ones were friendly, but this is incredible. I'm beginning to think maybe this fish has been fed quite a bit and he's looking for a handout. But I didn't bring him any food. He tries my arm to see how it tastes, but dry suits apparently aren't very good eating. Before long, he gets the idea that I haven't got anything to eat, so he goes over to see my dive buddy Tim, who just happens to have brought a snack. Now, I would bet that there's no way a wolf eel would eat a sausage, but as it turns out, they love sausages. Who'da thunk? After he gets his snack, the wolf eel heads back to his den, and then I can see why they call them wolf eels. This fish has a body 6 feet long, and it's more eel-like than fish-like. So why do we call the Atlantic ones fish and the Pacific ones eels? Good question, but they're both fish and probably one of the most interesting fish to interact with in the entire world. No matter what you call them, they're cool.